Oh yeah! It's time for another episode of We Love Comics, the show where we love comics, and you should too. I am one of your hosts, Vactor, if you're nasty, and I have on the line with me the most hunters of camp, Hunter Camp. He's the wolf pack himself. That's NWO Hunter right there. And then we also have returning the best figure collector in the game, Markus Seaberry.
you be on the evil consumer, bro. Crazy with lunch. I am nowhere near because, like, let me give you some comparisons. The Miss Out Talk lets clown me because I don't buy anything over like $25. They're like, I was like, I'm a librarian.
He's a smart man.
All right. Well, he's the best figure collector on this podcast. How about that? Sorry, Hunter. And we have...
It don't even work, man. Hunter got some nice...
Okay, well, when Hunter's not on, when it's just me and you, Seaberry, you're the best. All right, so we have an esteemed guest who I really want to introduce because this man goes back... I think this is the best graphic designer I've ever seen in my history on the internet. Not only the most talented graphic designer, but also the best musician I've ever met in my life. And this goes back to our Between the Panels days. He is a very good friend of mine. He is from KC, but he's currently in LA. Mr. Dane Davenport. Dane, how you doing today?
Well, after that introduction, I couldn't be any better. Thank you so much for having me.
I forgot to mention, Dane is the greatest Superman fan of all time in the history of the universe. So we also have to throw that out there.
That's the one where I might actually agree with you.
Frank is going to be very upset about this.
Well, when Frank comes on, I'll say he's the best. But now, before we get into all of that, I do want to let everybody know that we are part of a podcast network, the Geek, so to speak, podcast network, where you can find all of the lovely podcasts that I am currently doing and that is fulfilling my time. We have Geek, so to speak, which is the Geek News podcast, currently on hiatus. We're kind of retooling that one, but that one's on hiatus. We have the Sandbox Gamers, which is our video game podcast, which this week I'm going to be talking all about some video games, Hunter Camp.
Good. and for the record, I say this every week, but I have to reiterate this. Sandbox Gamers is probably my favorite video game podcast.
Oh, thank you very much.
There have been 2 internet-based video game conglomerate ideas that have gotten me really, really into video games recently, or back into video games, and that was Triple Jump, Team Triple Jump Everywhere, and Sandbox Gamers.
Thank you very much. This week, I'm going to be talking about Neon White, which is a new first-person shooter for the Nintendo Switch. And spoiler alert, it is very good. But if you want to hear all of my thoughts, you can check out the Sandbox Gamers. And then for you Trekkies and Trekkers out there, we have TREKnological, which is our Star Trek podcast. Currently, we are going through the first season of Strange New Worlds, which is also excellent. It's about to come up on the end of its first season. But check out TREKnological, as well as all of the Geek, so to speak, podcasts on the Geek, so to speak network. You can visit www.geeksotospeak.com/network. All right, let's get into why we are here, my friends. And wait a minute. You did it again, Vactor. You forgot the new figure alert. Figure alert. Hey. So I got the Amazing Fantasy. This is the first appearance of Spider-Man. I had to do it. And as you can see from my shirt and my hat, I love Spider-Man. So you got to have the first appearance of Spider-Man. I thought this was cool. They're doing these Funko things where they have like the original comic in the back. So I think that's cool, Hunter Camp.
It is very cool. I actually like that a lot.
Too, like there was this Slam issue where Allen Iverson.
Oh yes.
Throw out. And they made a pop and put.
I saw the Vince Carter one like that, which I had both of those Slam magazines. If this was another time, if we were doing this podcast back when I was in high school, this would be We Love Basketball, and I would have nothing but
I wouldn't be
Slam
on it.
magazines. I had every issue of Slam. I would buy 2 issues, one to read and one to cut out and post on the wall and on my locker at school. But that's another time, another place.
Yeah, invite me on that podcast. Too.
Yeah,
I would not be invited on that podcast. I would not want to.
No, Hunter would be.
Oh, I would then.
No, if it was 1992, then I would be able to talk to you. But like anything after that, like Iverson's era was when I was not watching basketball.
Man, that was a great era. But
I'm sure it was.
I had cable and could shoot.
Really?
Yeah, that's.
Seaberry, what you got over there? I see some in your hand.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Very nice.
Yeah, more Joker, full disclosure, this is my first Joker figure ever. So, you know, I've been saying, like, I need a Joker. Well, I got me a daggum
Joker. Very nice.
This really the end of my new figures. So unless I get something tweeted down next week, I don't know. I got a little Funko Pop there that's nice. General Ramonda. Yeah. I had a little birthday savings at the Hot Topic. Had to go and do that. And then probably one of the most random figures in my
I love it.
All right, check it out. That Big Lots. It was like, hey, $5 off $15. I was at like $13. Like, well, I can't buy curses. Then I was like, ooh, Fire Mario for $5. Aaron Gibbity.
Yes. I was gonna say if that was just a random purchase and you wanted to get rid of that pretty easily, you could just
nice.
Because that is my favorite Mario suit.
Oh man, Tanuki suit is mine.
It's cool, but the colors in the Fire Mario is just very cool.
Nice. Speaking of colors, Hunter Camp,
yeah,
what you got behind you?
We got a bunch of colors. So I'm going to start off with this little guy. So I went to Mississippi Comic-Con this past weekend and would have spent $100 on action figures and stuff had it not been for the fact that Britt Baker and Anna Jay, 2 wrestlers from AEW, were there, and I paid for the autographs on the action figures that I have, so they're up there. So that would have been the case, but I did find, if you may or may not know, during Halloween I have changed my name on all of my social media platforms consistently for years to Haunter, because my name is Hunter, so obviously, and there happens to be a Pokemon that just happens to share that shares a name with that as Haunter, and here he is. So I found him, which was pretty cool. And then a friend of mine that works at a bookstore was able to hook me up with this giant black light Galactus pop figure that came with this nice little Silver Surfer too.
Oh man,
it's pretty cool. So this is going to stay right here. Now they don't stay behind me usually. They usually go on a different shelf. So
I love it, Hunter Camp.
Yeah, they're pretty cool.
You know what else I love?
Yep.
Tim Sale, and that's why we're here today. We're going to be talking about the life and times of Tim Sale. Recently passed away, unfortunately. So we wanted to talk about his life and works, and specifically kind of what drew us to Tim Sale, or what was our fondest memories of Tim Sale. His work has had an impact on all of us, going back to his debut in comics. I wanted to just go around the room and get some thoughts and opinions and just an experience, really, because I think having your experience is what makes this podcast great. So let's start off with, like I said, the greatest Superman fan. I want to call him Dane L. He is Dane Davenport. What is your fondest memories of Tim Sale?
Ooh, that's a tough question. I have so many. And I really do. I never met him in all the years of like podcasting about comics or anything. So I can't really speak to his life, but when it comes to his work, like it's basically like my whole comic book's life has been colored by it. Like I remember probably my first exposure to his work was flipping through the bins at my local comic book shop and finding like a middle issue of Long Halloween.
Oh yeah.
You know, those thick issues.
Yeah.
And just like it looked like, just physically, it looked nothing like anything else in there. And I was just like, what is this? I need it. But since it was the middle, I didn't actually read it. I like kind of glanced through it, but I didn't want to like spoil myself. So it was actually probably a couple years later before I read it.
Nice.
Through like a collected version. But like you said, I'm a huge Superman fan. So like Superman for all seasons, and then also maybe even more so, like all his work with Jeff Loeb, it's iconic, and like most of his career was that partnership, and like with the Marvel Color series. But I think one of my favorite Superman comics was his collaboration with Darwin Cook, which was Superman Confidential, and then renamed Superman Kryptonite. And that was kind of where I fell in love with his characterizations.
Nice.
And I think that's my biggest connection with his work, through the through line through all of it, is the emotion that he would draw out from his characters. Like his artwork varies quite a bit, and it varied largely on what colorist he was working with too. And it seemed like no matter the style someone brought to it, it highlighted his work in a different way. But it always like popped, and it was like, I'm guessing it was a colorist's dream just to work on his artwork and his pages.
So Dane, do you mind if I ask you?
Yeah, go.
Do you mind if I ask you a question? So when you kind of discovered the like Kryptonite or Confidential, like where were you in your life that like, why was that like that? It's like that was so impactful for you.
I didn't have a lot of money through like the early 2000s, 90s, early 2000s. So for me, almost any Superman comic book I got was a treasure, and it rarely had to do with me seeking a book out. It was like, what could I afford? And sometimes what was given to me by someone who's like, oh, you're a big Superman fan. Because like, as long as I can remember, like run around with, you know, a towel over my shoulders, like I've been a Superman fan. So for me, it was just seeing a new aspect of the character, that I had seen kind of this iconic Superman that we all know and love. And then in that book, you see more like that whole story revolves around the humanity of Superman. And even like, I think last lines reference that like our struggles are what makes us human, our mistakes and our like our pain. There's one sequence in there that was the moment I realized like this is something special. And Superman is like dove into a volcano and like swimming through lava, trying to like, if I remember correctly, like try to poke a hole through the side to like vent it out to the ocean instead of on a village full of people. And it kind of cuts in the middle of the story as he's like drowning in lava. And this is somewhat early in his career. And then he kind of cuts to him telling the story to Mom and Pa Kent back at the farm. And the writing is really good, but there's something about the facial expressions and just the emotion, like through all his work, whether like Spider-Man Blue, I think is one of the most emotional books. It still makes me emotional every time I read it. Like all of his artwork just draws out this emotion in a really cute way. But there's something about seeing fear in Superman's eyes, and then also like seeing him afterwards talk about it, of like breathing in lava, not knowing like if he would survive, and the fear of like dying, and just like him putting himself in these situations. Like, yes, he survived, but willing to put himself in that situation without knowing it. And throughout that entire book, like he's coming up against things, and like the title's Kryptonite, like there's kryptonite in the book, and like coming up against things that could kill him, and then knowing it could kill him and still choosing to do whatever he can within his power to do the right thing. And that's what I love about the character. And that was probably the moment for me to answer your question the most elongated way possible. That was it for me, where it's just like, oh, like this is, whenever people talk about Superman being like the god that no one can relate to, he's so overpowered, Like, that's not how I see the character. How I see the
sure.
character is he's super powerful, but like I think people in general underestimate how much power they have in the world for change and for good.
Absolutely.
And oftentimes like avoid situations where they feel uncomfortable or in danger, or and I think like that's what I love about the character. I think the purpose of the character is to inspire people to say like it doesn't really matter if you have the powers of Superman, or like no matter where you are in life, no matter how much power you have the power in any moment to give all yourself towards the greater good and for the good of others. And
yeah, to make a difference for sure.
Yeah. So like it's really hard for me to talk about any of Tim Sale's artwork without talking about like that emotion. Like
Of course.
whether it's the Hulk and Hulk Gray, or like Matt Murdock, the Man Without Fear, like struggling through his fear, and Daredevil Yellow. Like I think that's the through line where it's just like you think of a character in a certain way and he's able to bring this humanity and this emotion to it in the moment that I think is so rare.
It really is. And like his art, like my introduction to Tim Sale's art, like artwork and work in general, was Long Halloween. And like I mentioned slightly what the background was for that, but like that's something that I vividly remember. Like I remember going into Books A Million. It was like at the evening time. I think it was like on a Friday or Saturday, like right before they closed. And this was like 1999 or like 2000. So this was like 20 years ago, at the very least. And I remember it so clearly because like, I was just like skimming through books, and they were all trades. Because that was even a new thing for me, because I realized at the time like, oh, these are collected editions. This is something that like exists. So it was like going through those books and then finding something called The Long Halloween, first of all, because it's like, spooky stuff is stuff that I like I'm a big Halloween guy. So pulling that out, and then if you haven't seen Tim Sale's artwork, like it's not going to make sense, right? When to describe this, but it's like when I opened it up, it was just like seeing something that I'd never seen before. And so yes, there is a lot of emotion in his work, and like what he does portrays like that human emotion in superheroes, which is not something that every artist can say. But the way, and especially Long Halloween, like how everything was like almost incredibly stylistic and dramatically done, that I had never encountered before. Because it's like, yeah, I've seen Batman look like Batman. Sometimes he has big ears, but like this whole, like the Scarecrow in it, like that character design, everything just kind of being bigger and more imposing, and haunting in so many different ways. And then going into Dark Victory and seeing all of his Batman work, it's like Tim Sale had an understanding of Batman that no one else, I think, has even come close to, because it's just a different take on Gotham and that whole entire world, that it's so incredibly unique, but it's like it just gets it on a not even a subliminal level, but like a very, very deep mental level. And it's like I can explain this just with this. And so I mean, his work with Jeff Loeb obviously is very important, and like what Jeff Loeb does in comics is very important, and the writing is very important. But like I remember the story for Long Halloween, and I remember reading it. I've read that comic like more than I've read any other comic in my entire life. Not even like I've read that more than read Watchmen. I've read Watchmen 1,000 times. What I always think of is how each one of those characters looks in each panel. Like I see Calendar Man, and I see this like almost demented serial killer, and it's like, that is so cool. And just how everything was done was just amazing. And I think it's just, there's a reason why every Batman's movie that's come out in the past however long is based at least somewhat on Long Halloween. And it's not necessarily just the writing, it's like the way it's shot, it's the way that the character is, and the way shadows are used, like all of those things. And it's because of Tim Sale.
Specific to the artwork too is he especially when he works with Batman, does this mixture of like otherworldly
Yeah.
and almost alien plus
Yes.
this tactile real. Like there's a shot in I think in Haunted Night where you see Scarecrow and he's got like some wires or like very real tactile things like strapped to him,
Yeah.
but also he looks deformed and demonic.
Yeah.
It's just the
100%.
combination of like, oh, it's both things at the same time. And
Right.
I think the best Batman movies do that, where it's like
Yes.
it's otherworldly and demonic kind of visually, but also this tactile real, like
And
has weight.
That like the first action figure I bought as an adult that I can remember was his version, like the Long Halloween Scarecrow. Like that was from that line. So like that's the most impactful comic book story that I've ever read, because it's something that I'd never experienced before. It was something that just got everything that I wanted out of a comic, like everything that I wanted out of a Batman comic, because of like exactly what you said. It's like a demonic, like almost, it's terrifying how it's presented. And then the real world stuff, right? So like the mafia stuff mixed with this like crazy like visuals. This just, again, I can't, like, you either with Batman stories, and I love Batman, and I love like just a wide array of Batman stories, but like you either get the detective, you either get the scary stuff, or you get the mafia stuff. And it's like this had all of that and presented it in the perfect way, and I don't think that anybody could really disagree with that, because it's just perfectly done.
Yeah.
And it was because him, but that was it. Like it was like, this is what got me back into comics. This is what opened my mind to different art styles. This is what opened me up to so many different things. And that's why, like, I don't remember anything, right? I don't remember the first date I had with my ex-wife. Like, I don't remember, like, I barely remember what happened on my wedding day. Like, there's so many things that like I don't have any recollection of, but like I remember like going to buy that comic and just stumbling upon it, which is just the craziest thing. But like, that's how important this comic is. And like,
yeah,
core memory.
Yeah.
Seaberry, do you have any core memories of Tim Sale growing up in Tennessee?
Well, not growing up, I didn't really get exposed to him until my 30s.
Oh,
mainly because of you. Because I was like, I don't know. At some point, I was caping, pun intended, I guess, for Dark Knight Returns. Y'all were like, yes, that's a good book, but Buddy Long Halloween. And I was like, we'll see. And y'all were right. I liked it, but it didn't eclipse Dark Knight Returns as my favorite Batman story. It was close. It's like top 5. Honestly, he was the main constant to me in the Loeb Fell stories, because Jeff Loeb is very hit or miss to me, and I'm sorry, I gotta be the guy. I gotta talk about it. Spider-Man Blue has the dumbest framing sequence of all time.
what?
It's no freaking sense. I'm just talking into this portal, and I don't know who I'm saying it for. He literally says this. I don't know who I'm recording this for. That's dumb, dude. But it has nothing to do with Tim Sale. Tim Sale's artwork was popping. And like, I never really got into the Marvel color joints. Like, I read Spider-Man 2 and I was like, okay, it looked good, but that part was dumb to me, so that bothered me. But I have read Long Halloween. I just did a reread of Superman for All Seasons. And after he passed away, I went to Jupiter Comics. It is a store outside of Moscow, Tennessee, where my parents live. And I bought it because I remember reading your copy, Vactor, and not liking it. At the time, I felt it was a bit derivative of John Byrne's Man of Steel story. But now, as years have passed, I can kind of recant that like it worked. Now, I thought Jeff Loeb was in rare form in Superman for All Seasons, but also, man, like way Tim Sale draws Superman and Clark Kent, he just had this like innocence and wonder about him, and also like a bit of an awkward.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's kind of just going through life being this bull in a china shop, and he's trying to figure out where he belongs. You get that in Jeff Loeb's writing, you also get that with Tim Sale's drawing of him. And then his feisty, strong-willed Lois. And his evil, jealous Lex Luthor. Because, you know, as I've gotten older, I was like, you know, I get a little of what Lex was saying. Like, hey, we just gonna trust the aliens. Because the aliens, we ain't gonna do a background check. But you want to sympathize with Luthor, but like in a story like that, he just starts doing just evil, just nasty things. And you like, well, okay, Luthor's a jerk. It's like Tim Sale's art helped to convey that. And then I just was reminded of this gem that I own.
Ooh-wee.
Because of the Batman. This is like some early Tim Sale Batman stuff. It predates Long Halloween. And yeah, I mean, Tim Sale definitely has left a stamp on Batman. You know, there is a style, there is a mood, you know, just a vibe, if you will, that is kind of become a permanent part of the Batman mythos. You know, like I said, it's mainly what I know him from the DC stuff. Like I said, I read Spider-Man Blue. I read like the first issue with Captain America White. That sucker was delayed a lot. I need
like 10 years.
Huh?
Like 10 years.
Yeah.
I need to go back and get some of those. But like I said,
that's the only one that I didn't finish out of the color series because it took so long. When it finally came out, I was like, oh, I forgot about that book.
Yep.
It originally came out in July of 2008 and it finished in December of 2015. It's a 6-issue series, but that's the only one that I did not end up finishing out of that color series.
Yeah. Like I said, just good stuff. I need to go back, but like the first one I found like the same week he passed away again. I happened to be in Moscow, Tennessee at this store. They had like a kind of beat up, heavily discounted copy of Superman for all seasons, and I was just like, yeah, you know. And I echo, you all sentiments about Superman, man. Like he was like, oh, he's OP, and I'm just like, dude, read a good Superman story, which means good writing and good art. Like if you read a good one like Superman for All Seasons, you'll get it, man. Superman's about hope, and Superman, because of his upbringing, you know, he's not like, oh, these pathetic humans, I can catch them all. Like that ain't Superman, dude. Superman, like, how can I use my powers in the best way to do the right thing? And yet again, Tim Sale's version of that helped convey that and get that across to me. And I was buying Superman Confidential monthly with the Kryptonite store. I don't think I finished. And I think I meant to get that trade, but I never did. I got to go back and get that trade too. But I was buying that monthly, and I was like, oh, well, this is great. You know, just a cool little Superman story, man. Dude, like, he was great, and I was just shocked because, like, I didn't know he'd been battling any medical issues. It was like one day I see, oh, he's in the hospital, and it's serious. Yeah. And, you know, I put some in our text group, and I'm just like, oh, Tim Sale's in the hospital. They say he's doing bad. And then 2 days later, it's like, oh, Tim Sale's passed. I was like, what?
Yeah. And
it's just crazy because like, you know, 66, older than me, so pretty much, you know, all of my life there's been a Tim Sale. And, you know, just made great art, and also, his collaborator on Superman Kryptonite, Darwin Cook, is also gone from us now. It's just
also way too soon.
Yeah, it's just saddening, man. Cause like, A, loss of life. B, they got friends and family, and then C, I mean, like, you just appreciated them, and I'm a guy who always wondered what is next, like, what else could Tim Sale have,
right,
got out
Created.
there? Yeah, what created, man? Like, it's truly tragic. But I can say, man, while he was here though, boy, he felt like he didn't waste time.
Right. And I think that's one of the reasons why I wanted to tell like the story that I told, was because it's like, no, this man never has thought about being my entire, like, ever. You know what I'm saying? That there's probably hasn't thought about it, so we're being realistic. But had such an incredible impact on, at least, like, on all of our lives, but like me specifically, because it's like that changed my life. Like, that changed my whole trajectory of like the things that I did in the rest of my life, and it's crazy because it's like I don't like Jeff Loeb without Tim Sale. Like, I've not read a single Jeff Loeb story that I enjoyed without Tim Sale as an artist, right? So really, like, this guy has impacted each one of us, but like has changed our lives, and it's like, when we think about this, and especially like when we talk about like memorials or retrospectives on somebody that's passed away, it's like, you don't like it always feels like it's like I admire what they did or whatever, but in this, like, really his work changed our lives, and I think that that's like the coolest thing in the world, and it's so cool to be able to say that. It sucks to not be able to tell him that, like, oh dude, like, you changed my life for the better, but at the same time, it's like, he's still going to change people's lives.
But I to compare, I've met Chris Claremont.
Right.
So I was able to, get my little picture on my cell phone and have my little fanboy moment. He's a very talkative man, that Chris. But I was like, you know what? He wrote Dark Phoenix. I'm gonna let him run his mouth.
Of course, yes.
But yeah, so I guess kind of how you felt about Tim Sale, that's how I felt about Claremont. Now, like, got that moment, and even though those are kind of short, fleeting moments, like, it's important, man, because like, I know I do. Like, I'm the guy, sometimes I read a good article. I used to like add folks on Twitter like, yo, man, I like that article. Or, not to kiss butt or nothing like that, but just like, yo, like, your words or your art touched me and, made me think about things.
Yeah. Give them their flowers while they're here, for sure.
Yeah.
Right.
And so we gotta talk about, man, if you can remember, Tim Sale drew the artwork like during that first season of Heroes.
Right.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That was one
of
of the things that drew me to Heroes.
Yeah, even after I stopped watching Heroes, I still bought the book.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
that had his artwork, just because it was so incredible. Like, and I still have it on my shelf. Like, it's
that first season of Heroes. I even was doing a Heroes podcast at the time, and I just remember that being just another piece of the pie that I was like, I love this show. It's got this, and this, and it's got Tim Sale. Look at this. This is like geek validation. This is a comic book guy that's here doing the art, because that was another thing back in those days. It wasn't the same as today, where like comic books are, I think, a lot more in the mainstream.
100%.
Whereas back then it was like, oh, there's a TV show. It's got comic book guys on it. So I was
actual comic book art,
right?
On the television.
The artwork for How to Stop an Exploding Man was like such a cool thing. I loved it.
And for me, I can echo all of the statements that have been said so far, but I think the color series impacted me the most. Seaberry, I know you are not a big fan of the framing of Spider-Man Blue, but that was
I
one that
mean, like the action flashback was, like I said, it was cool, it was cute. Like I said, no knocks on Sale. Sale is the North Star in the Loeb-Sale relationship. He is the constant. Loeb would be like, yeah. Sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't.
Yeah, I remember when I was getting back into comics, similar to Hunter, I went to the public library and I was also listening to comic book podcasts at that time and just okay, what's the best books that I can find? And when I came across that color series, I don't know which one I came across first. It might have been Daredevil Yellow, but when I saw number one, it's just kind of a primal thing where the colors capture your attention, and having the whole book series be themed towards color. Daredevil's yellow costume, Spider-Man's blue in his costume, Hulk was originally gray when he first came out. All of those like captured me, and so that was the moment that cemented for me his art. And actually, I think when I first saw his art, I was like, wait a minute, this is a little bit different than what I'm used to. And Hunter talked about it, kind of the perspective of the characters is kind of stretched out a little bit, and the scarecrow menacing vibe of him, and seeing all the teeth and things pointing out, and what Dane was talking about with the realism the the ropes and the things that were on him. All of those things kind of threw me off a little bit when I first was looking at it, but then it just kind of grew on me, and then it was like, okay, this is one of my favorite artists working at the time, and so I was like, let me go back and find everything that I was missing up to that point. So I was grabbing Long Halloween, I was grabbing the Superman books, and then, like I said, the color series just spoke to me for whatever reason. Like I love all those characters. It's the early days of all those characters. Spider-Man Blue in particular is one that I always reference. And when my wife started reading comic books, when she first started dating me, I handed her Spider-Man Blue because I told her, I said, okay, Gwen Stacy is Peter Parker's true love, and this will show you why. And she was like, oh, I didn't know, because at that point it was only Kirsten Dunst that was in the movies that she knew. And even in the cartoons at the time, it was like Mary Jane was everything. So I was like, no, this is the first love of Peter Parker right here, Gwen Stacy. And just the story between those two um, captured my, my heart. And so all of the color series, like I said, each one of those, even I was not a big fan of Daredevil at the time when I was reading that. Now he's one of my favorite characters. But back then I was like, oh, Daredevil Yellow, I can get into this. This is something that captures my attention. Whereas before I was like, man, Daredevil's boring. All he got is some he can bounce his stick off the wall and he's got radar powers. Whoop-de-doo. He ain't Spider-Man.
Okay,
But
Dolphin.
I loved Daredevil Yellow. That was one of my favorites. And like I said, Captain America White, I should probably, now that he has passed away, I should probably read it. It's been out for what, 7 years now?
Well, I will say I kind of am not the biggest fan of the writing in that. Like Late Loeb is not my favorite, but Dave Stewart's colors in that book and Tim Sale's artwork is just so phenomenal.
Yeah, Dave
that
Stewart's
like you don't even have to read it. Like it's not a bad story, but it's like the feature of that book is the art. And it's just like this was worth waiting a decade for.
Okay, cool. So I will check out Captain America White. Seaberry actually brought something to my attention that I was not aware of. There was a CBR article before the Long Halloween. Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale released a Forgotten X-Men miniseries.
Oh yeah.
So I'm going to link that in our show notes. Seaberry, did you have any thoughts on this?
I didn't know about it either, man. And I guess because I was in college, I was trying to budget a little bit, and plus I had 95 was a year before my college roommate, God bless dead, took me to my current LCS, Comics and Collectibles, and I started, getting stuff a little more ready. Then I was still like going to a little newsstand in like the bottom, on like the first floor of the university center at my college, or I don't know, random Walgreens and Super D. So like I was blown away when I sent that to you. I was like, oh, I do not remember this at all.
Yeah, it was Wolverine and Gambit Victims, a 4-issue miniseries that came out in '95, and it's Loeb sale. Like The Long Halloween, it's a murder mystery where Wolverine is the prime suspect. So I want to check that out. I think
I've read it.
Oh, have you? Is it good? Does it live up to the hype?
Okay, you sent me that article the other day, written by Robert Cran over at CBR. And that article kind of explains the context of that book, which it is mid-90s, mid-story of everything that's going on in the X-Verse. And if you're an X-Men fan, you know it's all convoluted, and there's always a billion things going on. So the story is a small piece of a world in which that's very convoluted and a million things are going on. That said, this is very early Tim Sale, and he is himself out of the gate. Awesome. In the Daredevil Yellow, the forward is written by Stanley, and he says something in there to the effect of like, looking at Tim Sale pages is like watching a master cinematographer at work in a film. And I think that is highlighted in the Wolverine Gambit book. I think more than anywhere else. For years I was on a podcast called Between the Panels, and the idea that comic books is the story that's told between the panels, not just the panels. You get master artwork. One of the downsides to that book is I think Sale's kind of visually trying to show a movie, so it's almost more storyboard instead of letting some of the story happen between the panels. But it's very cool if you're a fan of his work. It's not, if someone's listening and they're not familiar with Tim Sale's work, I highly recommend something like Spider-Man Blue or Superman for All Seasons. Like they're or of course Long Halloween. But if you are already a fan of his work, it is worthwhile going back and looking at it, because you can see how he grew. It is, the coloring on that is 90s early digital coloring.
Ooh.
So a lot of like airbrushy fades that doesn't work great on his artwork. I would almost like them to re-release the book as like a black and white, just of inks,
cool.
Or maybe someone else doing the colors. I don't remember who did the colors, and I don't want to insult them. Maybe they're one of the best of all time, but that in that specific book, it's not the best look or pairing with his artwork. But he is there.
It's the 90s. I don't know, man.
Yeah,
it's a lot of bad stuff in the 90s, but some.
Yeah, and it's not a bad book. It's just the story is very much what it is, and so it's not super new reader friendly. Like Superman for All Seasons, you can pick that up, you can read it, and it's the book I used to introduce people to Spider-Man. This is not the book I'd use to introduce someone to X-Men.
I heard it. Did you hear it, Vactor?
I did. I know.
Yeah.
I also use Superman for All Seasons to introduce to my wife, because she was always asking me about, what was it like, when he was in Smallville? What was it like before he was Superman? What was his time in Kansas? Because my wife was born in Kansas. So I said, Superman for All Seasons, this is the one you want. I also, like I said, I handed her Spider-Man Blue as well to get her introduced to Peter Parker and his love story, because she loves love stories. She's all into that. But
who isn't?
I love Tim Sale's art, and you should too. I think this was a fantastic discussion, my friends. Dane, I'm very happy that you were able to join us. You're welcome back anytime. We actually should have a Superman Book of the Month club and have you back to come on. Anytime, you're welcome.
Don't tease me. I'll show up, invited or not. I'll show up. The stack of Superman books.
And Dane, is there anything that you would like to let our listeners know before you leave?
It's been half a decade since I've been a comic book podcaster. Now I'm a comic book listener and to the best podcast around.
Thank you.
So I'm mostly just doing music these days. I'm not even really doing graphic design so much. So
And it's good.
Oh, thank you. So yeah, I mean, it's probably not directly related to your audience, but if they like folk rock Americana music, then they can go to DaneDavenport.com. I'm at Dane Davenport on all the social media places you can find me. And yeah, I'll have new music coming out before too long.
Excellent. Hunter Camp can be found streaming on Twitch.
Yes.
So we
at twitch.tv/I am Hunter Camp. I do want to just throw in one fact.
Yes.
This is the book that I got from Books A Million. This is the only comic book or the only trade that it's the oldest one I have. This is from 1998. This I've had so many different hard times in my life where I've had to sell all the stuff that I've had. This is the one thing that survived all of them. This is how important this comic book is.
Very nice.
Twitch.tv/I am Hunter Camp. I'm playing FromSoft games now.
Oh yeah. And Mr. Markus Seaberry, not only can they find you podcasting at Black Nerd Power, but they can also find you reviewing movies and TV shows, including the new Obi-Wan show. Why don't you tell them about that?
Yeah. Part of a show called CineSundry. I do it in conjunction with On Location Memphis. That's an organization that, likes to bring screenings and different talks about with the actors, filmmakers, musicians. So my show is kind of branching out from that. Now my normal weekly shows normally about 8 to 10 minutes. I talk about movies that are out. I think the last one of those I did with Gail Carson Jones from the Memphis Film Commission, and we reviewed Top Gun. And also, every once in a while, normally when a nerdy show ends, we'll do a deep dive, and I'll bring on one of my nerdy friends. And you can see me and Memphis Flyer writer Chris McCoy discussing the Obi-Wan series. So that's also out there. You can see this stuff on the On Location Memphis YouTube channel or on their Facebook page. And Black Nerd Power is on hiatus, but if you want to listen to past episodes, you can go to Kazukian.com, listen to those on the Kazukian app. And, also, I keep harping this because I want to see people throw some money to the crowdfunding. Orange Mound Bound animated project coming soon. I think we got enough money to get the first episode made, but we still going. So you need some crowdfunding out there about it. Support your boy. You know what I'm saying? It's one of my lifelong dreams. I've been trying to do animation for a minute. Thank you for your support.
Excellent. And we'd like to thank the listeners both on YouTube and wherever your podcasts are found. Don't forget, you can always leave us a review in Spotify or Apple Podcasts. 5 stars, and Hunter Camp will do a dance on the next episode. So please give us 5 stars. You can also tell all of your comic-loving family and friends that We Love Comics is here as part of the Geek, So to Speak, podcast network. Like I said, geeksotospeak.com/network is where you can find all of those shows. But this show is the comic book show, and we want to let you know that we love comics.
And you should too.